Well, good morning again, everyone, and welcome to the Voices Library Lecture Series. We would like to begin with a land acknowledgement that we are gathered on the sacred homelands of the Mahikanic or Mohegan people, who are the stewards of this land.
That might not be the right. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Today, the community resides in Wisconsin and is known as the Stockbridge-Munsee Mohegan Nation. We pay honor and respect to their ancestors, past and present. Voices presents speakers on timely and enduring issues each semester to broaden and enrich the scope of studies at Hudson Valley Community College. Please fill out and return the surveys you received when you came in, or visit, just fill out the form. There will be an online option in the future. And committee members will be in the back of the auditorium, including myself, that you can return these forms to at the end of the presentation. Okay, and today we are honored to present Ginni Egan, the founder and executive director of Young Parents United, Inc., a nonprofit organization located in Schenectady, New York, which provides support and services for teenage parents and their children in the Capital Region. Ginni is a registered nurse and healthcare administrator with her master's in nonprofit management. Ginni also was herself a teenage mother who raised 4 children as a single parent. Ginni's professional and personal background led to the establishment of Young Parents United, Inc. Please welcome Ginni Egan.
Can you just tell me, excuse me, this goes to here, or there? How do I can just scroll through. I'll just scroll. Okay. Hi, everyone. Sorry about being so late. I'm going to probably have to skip over some of the slides because I tend to like content, and so I put too much information out there. So pretty much she explained who I am. I started this organization because when I was actually doing my research, I found there was a huge need for support services. There's a lot of focus on the issue, on the research behind it, and how much trouble it is for teen parents, and how we can prevent it. There's not that many programs, not just in the Capital Region, but all around the country, that support teenage families once they have the baby. So they're kind of running around with babies and not really getting enough support services. There may be programs out there, but it's important also to have a place that connects them to the resources. So I thank you for being here. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to speak about this. It's something that I'm passionate about, obviously, because I've studied it, but also because I've been one and I care about it. So this is a quote that I really means a lot to me, because I think as students, you probably, I don't know if it's all students, faculty who's here, but it's not always what we say, it's what we do. We all, especially when we're studying different topics, we get opinions about things, but it's important to then, see what kind of, like the subject topic here, voices, topic of the lecture series is to find your voice, to see what matters, but then what can we do about it? So the world is changed by your example and what you do more than it is by your opinion. This is a little bit what we're going to talk about. I may have to skip over some parts because there's not a lot of time. Thoughts, just those were some of the thoughts. I'm going to bring up some questions and ask you to answer a couple of things. Risk factors, there's a lot of stigma. It's all up here, national and state data, some health risks, emancipation, which is becoming independent in the eyes of the law, which is especially challenging for teenage parents when they have the responsibilities that they have. Positive outcomes, why should we help them? Some things being done in the community, and a little bit about our organization and what we're trying to do. So I just want a show of hands, who's ever made a decision that led to you don't have to be a pregnant teen, but who in this room has ever made a decision that led to a challenging consequence? Anybody else? I would think it'd be everyone. Yeah, just about. Okay. Right. So we've all made mistakes. We're human. And just think for a minute, what's your first reaction after realizing what you did? Just think, you don't have to say anything. Just think about what is your first reaction when you realize you made a mistake. Did you ever feel like this? Has anyone felt like that? At least once in their life? Like, what can I do to get rid of it? Oops, So it's just food for thought. It doesn't matter whether you're 15, having a baby, or 95 years old. We all make decisions that have consequences every day. Some are greater than others. Teens are no different than the rest of us, except that maybe they have a little bit more age-related recklessness. But they make decisions about their sexuality, and sometimes they get pregnant. Is there anyone here who here knows, just another show of hands, a teen that's become pregnant or was one themselves? It's quite a few, right? It's everywhere. It affects everyone. So some of the facts now I'm just going to talk a little bit about. As of 2017, this is the most recent stats that I have been able to locate. 18.8 of every 1,000 births in the United States were born to teen parents between the ages of 15 to 19 years old. That doesn't include under 15. So I can't go over every number, or I'd be here all day. And 1 in 5 births to teenagers are a repeat birth. Statistics show that there's often, within the first year, I believe it is, don't quote me on that, a repeat birth. So two of the important things to think about with this is, the prevention piece of the repeat births. So two of the things that we focus on in our organization is, preventing repeat pregnancies, educating the parents, but also dealing with the ones that are already here. What can we do to make that great? This is just to show images. Doesn't really matter. You don't have to look at it. It's hard to read. But it's just to show the downward trends of birth rates for females aged 15 to 19 from the 1990s till 2015. The birth rates are declining, but it also still is something that needs to be addressed. Still a challenging issue. There's still pretty large numbers, large percentages, but again, it is the trends are going down. This is sort of a race-specific. There is a larger, proportionately number of non-Hispanic, Black, Hispanic, American Indian, Alaskan Native. They are like among the highest teen pregnancy and birth rates. Just sort of a visual. Some risk factors that underlie teen pregnancy, sort of self-explanatory, less favorable socioeconomic conditions, low education, low education and low income levels of the family that they're growing up in. Teens in child welfare systems, and I thought these were two interesting points because you might not think that, but teens in child welfare systems are at higher risk of teen pregnancy and birth rate than other groups, and that teens living in foster care, this is the one that surprised me actually, are more than twice as likely to become pregnant as those not in foster care. Just things to think about. Oops, how do I go back? How do I go back? Oh, okay. Okay. Nope. Okay. So I want to talk about stigma because all of you have been affected and maybe some of you haven't. Just might want to think, do you think that, and I have to make a disclosure, some of these parents are families that we work with right here in the Capital Region. I'm not going to name names, but they've all consented to use their photographs. Do any of these parents with their children, does they look like they don't love their babies? Does anybody, just something to think about. Would you all agree that they look like they love their children? Can I get a show of hands? Okay. So They do have a lot to learn, yes, but who's going to teach them? You know, the baby's already here, so they really need support. It's just something to think about because, you know, in society, a lot of times when, you know, there's talk, you know, sometimes different people feel different ways. Some are more compassionate, you know, and empathetic. Others feel it's a tax burden on society. You know, there's a lot of differing opinions. There's some controversial opinions about parents with babies. So it's important to think about the fact that they're actually people that love their babies and maybe want to do the right thing, but maybe don't know and need help. Okay. This is the next one. These three parents are also in our program. All three of them graduated high school in June. Two of them are already in college and working. So they try, you know, they have a lot of things up against them, which we're going to talk a little bit about more in a few minutes. So despite what, again, you know, stigma might say, a lot of them are not just hanging out, you know, they're trying to move forward and they have a lot of obstacles. One father, we received a message on the website a while back, 18 years old, he has a 15-year-old girlfriend, she's having a baby, and this was the message that I received. Please help me, I need a job, I'm about to become a father. I found that many of them really do want to do what's necessary for success, but need guidance, direction, and follow through. And all these children that they're having are society's future generations, so we all benefit from helping them to stabilize their lives and move forward. It impacts everyone. Nationally, childbearing costs cost U.S. taxpayers between $9.4 and $28 billion a year through public assistance payments, tax revenue, and greater expenditures for public health care, foster care, and criminal justice services. Another thing about the stigma, I call this photo the wall between survival and dignity, because when you're receiving public assistance, you know, I don't know if any of you ever have, but sometimes it feels like there's that gate in front of you with the person on the other side of the inside the window, and it's a humiliating and often degrading experience that they need to do to get by, and that's another reason why they need support. Again, I keep repeating they need support. Okay. Children born to adolescents are more likely to have poorer educational, behavioral, and health outcomes throughout their lives compared to children born to older parents. A couple of teen moms with their babies. They have a challenge, you know, making the transition from fitting in as teenagers. Many of you, I'm sure, all remember your experiences in high school, trying to fit in, friendships, and when they reach this situation, their friendships are changing, having programs in place that role model families, healthy behavior patterns, parenting skills, and connecting with other parents the same age brings a greater sense of normalcy for them. They helps them to redefine. They begin to identify their role as parents, as well as build relationships with other teen parents who are in similar situations by putting them in the same social and development environment together. Okay, it's more cost effective if you look at the bigger picture to help teen parents cross the bridge to independence in the long term, rather than providing them with public assistance their whole lives. That's just sort of a visual about this thing is always a big concern. There's two different types of people I found, the ones that are worried about the cost to society financially, and then those that are care for the children, you know, the young mothers and fathers and the babies. So you kind of get it from two different directions. And so this one is a big concern to taxpayers and policymakers, that $9.4 billion a year. How self-sufficiency can reduce costs. Some of the research that's been done even though the United States still has the highest teen pregnancy rate among developed countries. As a result of prevention programs, and the federal government also encourages abstinence as some of their funding streams. But it's, I think up until the last number I have is like 2010, it had dropped like 57%. Okay, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about teen pregnancy and birth. Some of the health risk factors associated with teen pregnancy. Low birth weight, premature birth, anemia, high blood pressure, preeclampsia, which is a very dangerous condition for teen mothers, high infant mortality rate, and sexually transmitted diseases. Case management also it consists of ensuring prenatal care visits are initiated and kept, and follow up also after birth. So that's an important thing to address. Another thing is mental health concerns. Okay, having parents, some of the risk factors for that would be having parents with low education levels, a history of child abuse, limited social networks, living often in chaotic and unstable home environments. Not to say that that's everyone, but statistically it shows that that's a common denominator. Low-income, living in low-income communities. They're also obviously more likely to experience a tremendous amount of stress, which is also related to mental health. Girls 15 to 19 years old experience postpartum depression at a rate that's twice as high as women aged 25 years old and older. So just imagine the stress. I'm going to give you a little story. I have one mom that she got apartment, she finished high school, she got a job. She's 19, she has a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 9-month-old. She graduated high school and did all, moved forward, started college. We helped her through a lot of these transitions, got her own apartment. She was managing her get a little help from public assistance, but managing her life until the baby's father came out of jail. There was 3 domestic violence incidents. She had to move for her safety. She lost her job. She had to move out of her apartment and had to take a leave from school, but is still trying and is transitioning back in the right direction. But that's why ongoing also support services, because something happens, it doesn't just stop because you fixed one thing. There's a lot of continuum that has to take place. But just imagine that stress and how that could impact mental health. So education and teen pregnancy. Only about 50% of teen mothers by the time they're 22 years old have gotten a high school diploma, compared to 90% who do not give birth during adolescence. Teen fathers have a 25 to 30% lower probability of graduating high school than those who are not fathers, and only 10%. So I give a lot of credit to any of you here that are in college, that are teen moms, that were teen moms, because only about 10% complete a 2 to 4 year college program. Now, the next, so one of the things I have found too is just walking them to an alternative ed program is something they didn't even think about. You just walk them there, you take them to the office, and you see where they were in high school, and you see what they can do. And they do it, just by putting them in that position. It's pretty miraculous to watch. Sometimes it's just, again, putting them in the right place. Poverty and teen pregnancy. The children of teen parents are more likely to live in poverty and suffer high rates of abuse and neglect than would occur if their mothers delayed childbearing. So the next slide I'm going to show you is just something to contemplate as we start to look at what's happening here in the capital region. Okay, this is a mattress. And this is a family that we enrolled just 2 weeks ago. As a matter of fact, this was the only piece of furniture that this young 18-year-old mother had in her rent-subsidized apartment. She has 2 children, a 4-year-old and an 8-month-old. She's been in shelters. She's been in a lot of different places. She had no curtains. Everyone could see in their windows. It was a nice apartment. It was good that she had managed to figure out how to get a subsidized apartment. And but this is the way she was living, and when I got there, she was mopping the floor to try to make sure to make a good impression. She had no dressers. There was clothes lined up on the floor, no table to sit at with the children. And this is a real picture, okay? This is what I walked into. No dressers. So environment is really relevant to motivation. There's a huge need for furniture. Everyone needs furniture. Every time I enroll a family, almost every single time they're limited, but this was probably one of the worst. So we've also helped a lot of families, stabilize their living environments to the best of our ability as an organization. This mom, in spite of all the obstacles that she had going on, was in a CNA training program. She was starting an LPN program, which she had gotten herself into. She got herself through high school, all before we met her, on her own or with other support services. So they try. She was obviously, in spite of all that, with nothing but that. So the next day, obviously, we helped her with a lot of furniture and bedding and beds and things like that. Okay. Positive outcomes associated with support. So what they have found is that with support systems, the baby's more likely to be healthy, the children are more likely to be prepared for school, the mother gets educated, and the mother becomes economically independent. This is our goal, to create a plan to achieve those things. Involving teen fathers. So there are studies, and I think in recent years they started to study this a little bit more, but studies that have indicated that teen fathers who live with their children at the time they're born are maybe more committed to being involved in the lives of the children after birth. So this is one of our dads who had no idea what to do in the beginning, but he actually, I gotta go back again. Yeah, this dad, one of our fathers, didn't know what to do when the baby ran out of formula. Didn't ask anybody for anything. He was walking around town with the baby in his arm, and then we gave him a stroller, and I think he felt like he got a limo. He was so excited. The mom, the 17-year-old mom, had been dropping the baby off with him, and he was providing care for the baby, which, not really prepared for that. Had to learn to ask for help, for diapers, for formula when he didn't have it, things like that. Another dad was coupled with the mom. They were together. He took care of the baby while she finished high school. Now she's in college. Now he's going to go to college. They taking turns. They're working together. So they're all trying. Okay. Emancipation and teen pregnancy. So emancipation, as I said, is, being of legal age, or what's called the age of majority. In New York State, that's 21. So these teen parents, they have adult responsibilities, but they're still considered a minor in a lot of places that they go, from a legal and governmental standpoint. Now, why is this important? So living in often unhealthy home environments, many have suffered a great deal of childhood trauma. They're not eligible for public assistance until they're 21, independently. So a lot of times they're under their parents' welfare case. So one mother, just to give you a sort of, so living in, one mother, it was just this week actually, came in. She was 8 months pregnant. She was hungry. She wanted food. We had enrolled her, but she sort of dropped out and was ignoring us and running around, and it was hard to get a hold of her. She didn't have a phone. So she came in and said, I'm really hungry. She told me that her mother keeps all the food stamps and that she stays at her boyfriend's house, and the mother stays with the boyfriend's house and leaves her in an apartment with her older sister, the HUD apartment that they have, with no food. The sister has kids too. So I fed her. I gave her some groceries from our emergency food. We're moving her to her father's place, which isn't a whole lot better, on Thursday, but getting things set up for the baby that's due in a month and a half. It's a room, and we also, going to provide her with the layout for the, the supplies that she needs for the baby, and she's taken her first parenting class already. And she's going to be returning to high school when the baby's a few weeks old. Another 17-year-old mother was couch hopping, managed to get food stamps, lost her food stamp card, all of her ID except for her birth certificate, but DMV wouldn't give her new ID, DSS wouldn't give her her replacement card, so she had no food. She needed 5 points of ID for DMV. They told her her mother could sign, but her mother was in a nursing home and her father was homeless somewhere in Albany. So these are all situations why emancipation is a challenge. Some states more than others, but when you're 17 and you're living in these situations and your parents are responsible for you, it poses, which is another reason why, again, the support services are really important. I think I talked about all that already. So another mom couldn't wait to turn 18 because she was living in an apartment with her mom and her stepfather, who got out of jail and was cooking drugs in the kitchen, and she was in her room with her baby. She wanted to get out on her own because she doesn't drink, she doesn't smoke, and she didn't want to be around that stuff, but she had no capability to do that. So she began to work on what she was capable of, which was finishing high school, starting college. She started working, she saved up money, she now has her own apartment, she's independent, and she's just turned 18 years old. We hope to, at some point, start a transitional housing program where there's, through the state licensure of Office of Children and Family Services, and be able to provide that bridge to independence a little bit easier, where they get the supervision, but they continue with the supervision, but also have the supports in place. These are just some of the criteria for being able to be emancipated in New York State. Why help teen parents? So these are some of the reasons to help them develop effective parenting skills, for them to become socially responsible and productive members of society, to learn from positive role models about parenting and relationships, to build a foundation for a stable life, to help them complete their education. It's more cost-effective, like we talked about earlier, form social connections and acceptance, and build a support network. These families are among the most vulnerable. They're kids with kids, facing normal challenges and changes of their adolescence, as well as now being responsible for a new life. They don't have resources. The system is especially complex and conflicting for this unique position that they're in between childhood and adulthood. They struggle with their identity, all the normal adolescent challenges. And other than living with parents, they have, often living with their parents, they have unhealthy and unsafe home environments. So, getting kicked out, running away, couch surfing. CPS sometimes gets involved, Child Protective Services. Often the children, so once the child's already here, the most important thing to do is to make the future positive, to look forward, to create a positive mindset, and offer the needed supports for stability, parental skills, and a path to success and independence. One of the things we talk about with the parents when we first enroll them is what 4 elements of positive change. So 4 things that for them to think about, and this is whether you're 15 or 50, it doesn't really matter, is to first feel inspired by something, something that gives you a feeling of what matters. Next thing is to be empowered, to feel a sense, and this is where a lot of teenagers struggle because of self-esteem also, whether they have a kid or not, is just to feel empowered, to feel capable of doing that. So that's self-esteem building and skill building. And then also providing resources and tools and things that can help these parents to to take the next steps, connecting them with resources, helping them with things like diapers, formula. And then the last part is something that no one can do for them, and that's their own personal decision to act, to take the steps and to do the work that's required. So how are teen parents being helped in the Capital Region? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Capital Region, but I can focus more a little bit on Schenectady County because most of our families are in Schenectady, although we do have several parents in Albany County and a couple in Saratoga. So what's happening here in the Capital Region? These are some of the numbers. I'm not going to really spend a lot of time. I just sort of throw it up there. That's the the national numbers, the state numbers, and this is not per 1,000. This is just actual numbers. These are all the counties in the Capital Region. Schenectady has a community needs assessment, and on their community needs assessment in Schenectady County, adolescent pregnancy is listed as one of the top 15 community health issues in the county. Some of the things that they have listed on their needs assessment that they have been focusing on: quality maternity care for high-risk adolescent pregnancies, prenatal care, follow-ups, a health home, which is like a care management in-home for pregnant Medicaid recipients. Ellis also tracks maternity outcome data, and Planned Parenthood has had a pretty effective clinic in Schenectady High School for, right on site to offer birth control options, preventative types of things. Some other local resources: the County Public Health Department's Healthy Families. That's the home-based program that works in coordination with public health. It's not just for teen parents, it's for Medicaid single parents, recipients. WIC. St. Anne's in Albany, I know, has some youth programs. Safe Inc. has an emergency shelter bed for teen parents. Community Fathers is a father support group. Captain Community Service also has youth programs and an emergency shelter bed for one teen mother and a child. Planned Parenthood, again, has the program in the high school. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about our organization, which is fairly new. So when I was, one of the things I found when I was studying this topic was, well, what are the preparations? Here's the pregnant mom. What's being prepared for that baby before the baby's born? With no money, no support system, limited role models, lack of parenting skills, poor housing, there's a gap. What happens? Am I out of time? How much time do I have left?
Well, this is when the class time ends, so if you want to maybe take questions or wrap up now.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. Does anybody have any questions? Sorry, I couldn't get through the whole presentation. Anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Well, I hope it was a little bit informative. I'm sorry I couldn't finish the whole thing. Well, are some of you able to stay? Let me continue? No? Okay. Okay. Thank you.